Austin, Texas, has also adopted Agenda 21. It's an ICLEI city, so it simply means that they are working to incorporate the guidelines for sustainable development. Now, literally, I'll just give you an example. A piece of property that a church was wanting to build a church on. The first thing that they had to do, they had to have more than 10 acres of property because the city council would not grant a building permit for less than 10 acres, for a church for less than 10 acres. Once the church found a site that was more than 10 acres that happened to be within the city limits of the city of Austin, the first thing that you had to do was get an environmental study done. So an environmentalist comes out, walks over your property, checks to see if there's any golden cheek warbler evidence, any black-cap vireo evidence, look around to see if possibly there's any little cave openings. Every tree that's larger than 6 inches has to be named. You have to have a specific permit to cut the tree. You couldn't clear brush because, without the environmentalist first coming. And what he did, he pointed out, he says, okay, that vine over there, you don't want to mess with that. That's possibly endangered. So that you did that to start out with before you could even start clearing. In the process of clearing, in order to do anything for that property, we had to get approval by the city council. In order to get approval by the city council, you had to have a civil engineer come out and do soil samples on the property. And so you drilled core samples to be sure that there was no hidden cave. Because over in Austin,
sorry. You have to drill.
Yeah. You had to drill core samples to be sure you didn't have a hidden cave, because in Austin, development was stopped because they discovered a fuzzy-toothed cave dweller, supposedly some cricket-looking thing that was down in some supposed hidden cave over in another development in town. So you had to take all these core samples to be sure that you didn't have any vars or vugs. You didn't have an empty space down there that possibly contained some endangered species. The environmentalist himself identified whether there was an endangered species, some grass, possible flower, some shrub. We were basically cleared on that because supposedly the golden cheek warblers stayed on the other side of 290, and I guess the black-cap vireos did too, although our area was still included in habitat. And I could just go on and on. We literally, you had to have approval of 5 neighborhood associations. So the civil society part of Agenda 21, you had to have civil society approve. You had to have local governing authorities approve. And then they passed what they called an interim watershed ordinance. Later that was followed by the Barton Springs watershed ordinance. But the water that ran across your property had to be properly collected in a proper ordered filtration pools. Because the property had 15 acres, we were never going to be able to use more than 30% total of that entire property, because the water had to be able, since we did have collection ponds there that would slow the water down, but it had to be allowed to soak back in. And then we were charged for water that ran across the property. So if it was drained into the sewer, you were actually literally charged for rainwater that fell on the parking lot that ran into the drain.
How did they go about charging you? Was it by volume, or what was the...
it just show up on your utility bill, on your water usage bill. And one of the bills, it's crazy. But that's the thing. It gets so crazy. And that's, as I said, all of us want clean air. All of us want non-polluted streams and all this kind of stuff. But it's not about just clean air. It's not about just clean water. It's not about protecting some possibly endangered species. It is about controlling every single solitary aspect of your life, and that is being done all across the United States, and it's getting worse and worse.
Now, are you certain all these things were because of Agenda 21, or, Austin likes to say, let's keep Austin weird, and they've certainly lived up to that. Oh, can't tell.
No, it's definitely Agenda 21. And like I say, if you just looked at the headings, for instance, Agenda 21 is all inclusive. It talks about combating poverty. It talks about changing consumption patterns of how you eat, what you eat, demographic dynamics and sustainability, human health, human settlements, decision making. They want sustainable developments. The sustainable developments that they want to have is they want to have cities that for instance, this is going on right now in many communities, but in Austin, for instance, you'll have these multi-level, what looks like apartment buildings, but down on the bottom you have businesses.
Yes, we have those here too.
Exactly, and that's okay. It doesn't sound that bad until you want to draw in all of the people from out of the country and put them in those sustainable communities so that you can return all of the lands back to its natural habitat.